to our Tuesday, July the 6th, City Council agenda session. I now call this meeting to order. Our Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation tonight will be by Councilman Hester. Please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lord, for this day. We thank you for your grace, your mercy, your long suffering. Lord, we pray that this meeting will be done decently and in order. We're going to give you the praise, honor, all the glory. For your name we pray.
Amen. All right, tonight under special presentations, Madam Attorney, we have listed a hearing on a special permit. Have we had any development on that?
We have, thank you, Chairman. I have spoken with the attorney for the defendant property Sky Zoo, and we may have a conclusion that would not require a hearing this evening. Would it be okay with you if I spoke with him briefly to see if we could work this out, or would you prefer to go forward with the hearing?
Let me ask the council if, let me ask you this, would it be possible to defer a week or do we need to handle this today? Is that an option?
Well, may I speak before they?
Yeah, go ahead.
For information purposes, if we were to defer this a week, we could enter an agreement whereby Sky Zoo voluntarily surrenders their special permit. And we could enter into some discussions so that during that week, the special permit would not be in
Enforce.
in effect.
In effect. Yeah. Is that something that we need to hear from the attorney then, I guess, that he would voluntarily surrender that on record?
I think we would like to hear that from Mr. Cox.
Councilwoman Burrs?
That was, I'm fine with whatever the will of the council is. However, I want every bit of it on record. In other words, if Mr. Cox says will voluntarily surrender, then I want it on record that he understands what that means. There's nothing served after 11 o'clock. I mean, and I want that on record, whatever that means.
That is not agreed upon. That's why.
Okay, then no.
That is not agreed upon?
No, sir. What we are discussing is whether the special exception permit is required if Sky Zoo changes their principal use. And I was not able to, I wasn't prepared for a voluntary surrender. I was prepared for a hearing, but I can find out very quickly if their proposed use would allow them to serve alcohol after 11 p.m., which I think is the issue.
We could entertain a 5-minute break. Would that be sufficient enough time to take
Yes,
care of
sir.
this matter? So I'll tell you what we'll do. We will take a 5-minute break. Let's just reconvene at 10 after the hour. All right.
I don't know. You can't do something the way around. It's usually Yes. 100%. Not counting the time. Do you want to see who's? Winning hearts and minds. Yes, so cool. Zach used to follow. I just forgot about it. That's great. Also, does being litigious make you crazy?
Oh, that's right.
What's going on? Let's talk to me about public works administrator.
Interesting.
He's such a engineer.
Hard to do.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will now reconvene. Councilman Hester, this is, I think, physically in your district. Would you like to hear this case? Okay, all right. Is the attorney here for Sky Zoo? Any representative here for Sky Zoo? Please. We're going to have a hearing. I guess we need to. Councilwoman Coonrod, did you have a comment before while we're waiting? Okay, go ahead and hit your button again then. Chief, would you mind going and getting our attorney? We're going to start this hearing with or without representation. All right, we will now begin a public hearing on revocation of special permit of Sky Zoo. Madam Attorney, would you like to present your case, ma'am?
You prefer that I stand down here or?
Well, we've never done this before. I think you could be more visible from the podium if you'd like to do that.
Councilman Henderson, Chairman Henderson, Vice Chairman Smith, and the councilmen and women of the city of Chattanooga. We are here today on a very limited issue of whether the Sky Zoo should continue to operate under the special exceptions permit that this body granted back in 2011. As this is an opening statement, I will call witnesses for evidence. Sky Zoo will have an opportunity to present their own evidence, and then it will be up to you to decide if whether by a preponderance of the evidence, which is more likely than not, Sky Zoo should keep or lose its special exceptions permit. Sky Zoo is zoned in C2, which is Convenience Commercial District. Among the principal uses are the things you would think about in commerce: drugstores, grocery stores, dry cleaners, all of these things. It's convenient for people to go to a C2 place and do lots of business at once. Non-principal uses include a nightclub. And if a business that is in zone 2 would like to operate a non-principal use, they must have a special permit from this body, which was granted in 2011. The Chattanooga ordinance is crystal clear that the city council has both the right to give and take away a special exceptions permit. And it says in section 9 of 38-527 that a special exceptions permit for a late night entertainment event facility and or nightclub, which is what we have here, may be revoked by the city council at any time upon notice to the owner and after a public hearing, which is what we have now, and establishes violations by the preponderance of the evidence, which I just told you. There are then some factors that you are to consider. There are a bunch of factors, but we only have one here tonight. And that is the number and occurrences of police department calls. All of you recall a shooting incident in May that we will get to in the evidence that caused great alarm all over our city. And that is the instance that caused us to look into this special permit and to see if this business was operating in a way that was safe or unsafe for our residents. So from this point, I will put on evidence of why the city believes that this business should have its special permit revoked. I will start by calling Brent Goldberg. Would you please state your name and position for the council?
Brent Goldberg, Chief of Staff.
As chief of staff, are you authorized to speak on behalf of the administration?
Yes,
With regard to gun violence, does the administration have any position about policy around gun violence?
yes. Addressing gun violence in the city is a top priority for Mayor Tim Kelly's administration. And as our attorney mentioned, the incident that happened in May, basically shed some light on a situation that we thought needed to be addressed and investigated. And that's what brought us here today.
That's all for Mr. Goldberg.
Thank you.
Mr. Goldberg. Question.
Ms. O'Donnell?
Yes, Chairman Henderson is the presiding authority on this hearing, so it'll be up to him to determine.
Let's present the evidence and then you can cross-examine anybody that you need to.
With all due respect, Chairman, if you would like to allow a cross-examination, now would be the appropriate time.
Now would be the time.
Yes,
I'll follow your lead.
thank you.
Okay. Mr. Goldberg, would you come back up? Mr. Attorney?
Doug Cox here for Sky Zoo. Mr. Goldberg, you say that the city's concerned about gun violence in the city, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and that's nothing new. The Times Free Press reported on March the 8th of this year that there were 24 shootings in Chattanooga. Would you disagree with that number?
Objection, lack of foundation. He has only testified to the administration's belief. This is outside of the scope of the direct, and Mr. Cox knows that this is impermissible cross-examination.
Are you aware of the number of shootings that have occurred in the city of Chattanooga?
For what time period?
For 2021?
No.
Do you have any information regarding the shootings in the city of Chattanooga for that time period?
Not going to answer that.
You do or you don't?
You don't have to answer.
Witness has stated he's not willing to answer.
Next, I would call Chief David Roddy of the Chattanooga Police Department.
David Roddy, RODDY, Chief of Police, Chattanooga Police Department.
Chief Roddy, have you had an opportunity to look into the number of calls made to emergency services at the Sky Zoo?
Yes, I have.
What period of time have you analyzed?
The first that we did, just to get a total snapshot of what we're dealing with, we pulled total reports for the last 365 days on a sliding scale. Out of that 365 days, it looks like through CAD reports that we had a total of 36 disorders, 27 suspicious persons, 18 fights or disorders, 15 self-initiated field interviews, 10 assault calls, and 8 shots fired, person shot, or other incidents involving a firearm. For just those call types to be a total of 103 total within a 365-day period.
Could you say that total again, please?
103. Now, that is not the total calls for service. That's just the types of calls that I just illustrated for you. There are other calls that are captured in CAD. However, I'm not bringing those into the totals today. Some calls relative to like a medical call or a traffic crash or domestic violence. I do not want to report those in any type of negative connotation. So it won't be perceived for any establishment similar to Sky Zoo or any other business in Chattanooga to not call in when a person needs help in those instances relative to what's not required by law for an establishment that serves alcohol.
So is it fair to say, for clarity, that these calls are the ones that you have identified as reflective of a public disturbance?
These would be, yes, ma'am. These would be the most severe calls that I pulled on the initial CAD data that we reviewed.
Okay. Do you have any other data related to Sky Zoo for any different period of time?
Actually went back and pulled the last 861 days, which would be 365 times 2. I did that on my phone with a calculator because I'm not going to do it in my head. But looking at that, in that 861-day period, we had 56 disorders, 24 fights, and 9 shots fired. And that includes the numbers from the current 365 that I mentioned earlier. So looking at, if you're talking about in a propensity for issues, it looks like what's being presented in the data that 5709 Lee Highway is increasing in its types of calls for service that I mentioned were probably, and to me, the most concerning relative to violence or just the potential threat of someone being harmed. So in 861 days, you had 56 disorders. 36 of those occurred in the last year. In the last 861 days, you had 24 fights. 16 occurred of those in the last year. In the last 861 days, you had 9 shots fired or firearms related calls dispatched specifically through CAD for that title. 8 of those occurred in the last year.
Looking at these numbers, just let's limit it to year over year. What do you conclude about the safety of Sky Zoo?
For the types of calls that are coming in, many of those are actually directly connected to the safety of an individual or their victimization specifically as a victim in the crime, or the propensity for harm from a health standpoint, whether that's shots fired or a fight or a disorder. It looks like those types of calls for service have gone up statistically over the last 365 days compared to the previous year.
And does the increase cause you a specific concern?
As the chief of police, anytime there's an increase in violent crime or crime that affects an individual's safety, there's an absolute concern for us.
I'd like to talk about perhaps you might be in a better position than the chief here to talk about crime at large. Are the numbers that you looked at, are those typical of an establishment to have that number of calls for violence in that time period?
I couldn't speak to citywide. What I would say is I fully believe that this type of lens will be applied to establishments that have similar special exemption permits. This could very well just be the first of several conversations of locations that are experiencing an increase in violent crime, an increase in gun crime. This is the point of making a comprehensive plan in our city and our community to deal with what we're seeing every day. The question was posed a moment ago, how many shootings had occurred inside the city limits of Chattanooga 2021 to date? My understanding is as of today, I think we're at 100. That's an unacceptable number for this community, but it's what's being experienced across our country. So we need to have a comprehensive, multi-layered approach to how we address crime. That is addressing locations that are experiencing an increase in crime. That is using every resource in law enforcement to address the individuals that are driving crime. That is developing programs not related to the police department to how to get into some of our kids' lives so maybe they aren't the next victim. How to help some individuals coming out of incarceration so that they stand a better chance on re-entry. That's a multi-layered approach. This is but a component of that. So it's simply our job as your police department bring this to your attention as a body, answer questions that you have of us, but understand this is not a one-off. I fully expect this to be the first of one.
I'll ask you the same general questions about your department as I did about the mayoral administration. With regard to gun violence, what is the Chattanooga Police Department's position on gun violence?
Lowering gun violence is our primary focus right now. Traffic crashes are up. We work on those. Theft of catalytic converters is up. We're working on it. But the direct threat from gun violence and direct violence between suspect and victims is a focus of this police department. It has been since day one. It's been since I started this job, and it will be that way tomorrow. So we take these goals as part of the strategic vision of how we bring multiple partners, multiple plans, the city council as a whole, state legislator, whatever it looks like, bring all of those to bear to work on the violence that's going on right now. Yes, it is an absolute focus.
And you've already testified that seeking out places where gun violence is increasing is one part of your comprehensive strategy to combat violence and gun violence. Is it your recommendation today that Sky Zoo, as a special exception, have their permit removed by this body as a growing threat to the health and safety of our community?
With the increase in numbers seeing at that location, yes. Anything that helps remove locations that have a connection to harm in our community, I absolutely encourage that. One of the most dangerous intersections is Gaddon 153. I can't remove an intersection, but I can ask drivers to drive safely. Personally, I wish the entire city was asleep at 9 o'clock and eating their vegetables every night. People were a whole lot safer across the board. I can't get that to happen either. But everything we can do to reduce the likelihood of violence or harm for whatever that action is, whether it's a traffic crash or gunfire or assaults, whatever those are. We ask that any mechanism we can put in place to help us with that, we do that. It's chipping away at what we're trying to deal with as a community right now. And I think this is a good first step in that.
And just to pull some of your testimony together, could you tell me once more just the breakdown of the last 365 days, the calls that you, not the total number of calls, but the number of calls that you determined to be serious?
Out of the last 365 days, looking at the total number of disorder calls is 36. Suspicious activity calls were 18. Fights and disorders were 16. Self-initiated or field interview, which is where an officer observes something proactively that leads them to believe with reasonable suspicion that a crime is occurring or is about to occur. Assault is 10. And shots fired, person shots, or calls directly relayed through dispatch involving a firearm is 8.
8 calls?
Yes.
Regarding dispatch of a firearm.
Yes.
Are you aware of how many people were shot on the May 29th? In this case, if you were not.
No, ma'am, I can't speak to the specific facts on that.
Quite all right. But given that there have been, you said 100 shootings.
I believe it is 100 as of today, yes.
Does it seem disproportionate, this number of calls and this number of violence for one location in our city?
I couldn't say that without being able to compare it, as I said a moment ago, to other similar locations. I think I would be reckless to try and give a comparative on data that I haven't seen.
Thank you. Have you compared Sky Zoo with any other establishments that you might feel comfortable comparing to?
We looked historically just because of the history in Chattanooga. We looked at a location that we had some issues with, named Coyote Jack's. So we did a comparative on the calls for service that location showed us over the previous year.
What did you find about Coyote Jack's? And before you go into that, is Coyote Jack's currently operating?
It is not.
Are you aware of why they are no longer operating?
That I cannot say. I know they closed down. There were multiple avenues that the city worked to try and help control that establishment. The actual one that led to their closing doors, I couldn't speak to from recollection.
So what did you find about the number of calls at Coyote Jack's relative to the number of calls at Sky Zoo?
Coyote Jack's closed in 2020, so the only full year worth of data that we had was calendar year 2019. For the 2019 365-day area, for total number of disorders, you had 12. Total number of assaults, you had 9. Shots fired, persons shots, calls related directly to a firearm related to dispatch was 5. Fights and disorders was 5. The other ones that I mentioned a moment ago are not on high enough list to even come up into a statistic.
Are the numbers that you just gave, disorderly assault, shots fired, are those what you would consider to be the most dangerous calls, the most serious?
The most
severity?
concerning for a nightclub or other type of location like that, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and in case anyone is as bad as math as I am, are all of those categories, how do they compare between Sky Zoo and Coyote Jack?
Looking at disorders, the last 365 days for Sky Zoo was 36. And the total 2019 disorders for Coyote Jacks was 12. So that's 1/3. After that, my math falls apart. So I can't do the rest of them for you, but I can do 12 into 36.
Very beat me. Disorder.
Yes. Total number of fights, you had 5 for Coyote Jacks. For Sky Zoo, you had 16.
I can do that one. More than a third,
Third point something.
third plus one. The next one?
Looking at fights, disorders were 5 for Coyote Jacks. And fights, disorders were 16.
Was there another one? Is that-
The shots fired,
Shots. Okay.
which is any type of firearm related that comes in directly related as a firearm related. Last 365 days for Sky Zoo was 8. And for Coyote Jacks was 5.
That's all I have for you at the moment, Chief. I'm going to allow Mr. Cox to cross-examine you.
Chief Ruddy, how are you?
Good, sir. You?
Good, good to see you. You said there were 100 shootings in Chattanooga so far this
I
year.
believe that's right. I'd give me a little bit of grace if I'm a few off on that.
I'm fine with that. Do you know how many reports of shots fired have taken place in Chattanooga in that same period of time?
No, sir, not off the top of my head.
It would be substantially more.
Yes, sir, it would.
Have you ever been to Sky Zoo and see how they operate?
No, sir, not during their business hours.
Okay, well, if they had 8 security guards licensed at this facility, would that seem adequate to
Oh.
you?
That'd be speculative without understanding the business rules. 8 is, I will acknowledge, 8 is a good sized number of security officers. Without knowing their rules, how they work, where they stand, how they're trained, what they do, it would be a little bit speculative, but 8 sounds like a good number.
And, if they were there to search the patrons as they went into the bar, would there be anything more they could do to keep the gun violence down?
Objection, this is speculative. We're only here on number of calls.
Would you just keep it to the number of,
Yeah, that's fine. If they wand these patrons that come into the thing, into their business, and they search them, is there anything else they could do to prevent firearm?
I'd have to see what their operations look like in the parking lot.
Let me ask you this question. Is Sergeant Jeremy Eames, is he still with the department?
Yes,
Is he still your spokesperson?
he is still the PIO, yes.
If he made a statement to the Times Free Press that random acts of violence are incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to plan for, would you agree with that?
From a law enforcement perspective, yes.
What would you recommend that an establishment like Sky Zoo do to prevent gun violence?
And I hate to jump backwards on you every time. Without seeing the actual operations in motion, it'd be speculative for me to give advice on something that I haven't even seen running.
Are there any general suggestions that you could give?
The one that I usually give for every establishment similar to this are the same ones that I gave Coyote Jackson 2018, I believe, which was you need to light up the entire parking lot with as many high intensity bulb lights as you can and as many security cameras that capture the events on the outside of the establishment, as well as any known parking areas around the vicinity. Even if you don't control it, work with the owners of those parking lots to establish lights and cameras.
And were you aware that they do have cameras at Sky Zoo?
that'd be the difference between are they good or not. I don't know the answer to
Well,
that.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you know the answer to this, but I think they helped catch the shooter in the incident that occurred at Sky's.
Do not
Do
know
you
that.
recall that?
No, sir. I do not.
You mentioned Coyote Jacks. Were you familiar with Coyote Jacks?
Some of their workings after we got into inspecting the premises and some of the conditions and meetings with their management and owners.
Were you aware that they were only open 3 days a week?
I believe so, yes.
So those numbers that you cited, you'd have to scale those against an operation that's open 7 days.
Not knowing the full operations on the 7 days, I couldn't do that.
But 3 is not 7.
No, 3 is not 7. I can do that math.
Madam Attorney, I do have a couple of lights for council, from council people. Would now be appropriate time
Thanks,
to
sir.
answer.
Sure. Before we entertain questions from the council, I'd like to have a brief redirect.
If that's within the bounds of the law, please help yourself. Go ahead.
Mr. Cox quoted one of your officers saying that a random act of violence is incredibly hard to plan. Tell me whether or not it is your opinion that this establishment, whether the acts are random.
A good number of them are probably not. When you're talking about disorders or fights or what's going on, there's usually a commonality of what's going on, and that's the behavior and what's drawing the behavior. If I may speak to what Sergeant Eames was getting at, is a conversation we have all the time, is it's difficult for a law enforcement officer to know when an act of violence is going to occur. That's the randomness of it. There's generally a connectivity between suspect and victim, especially on violent crimes, not so much property crimes. So that random component is our randomness as your police department. We don't always know the behavioral dynamics. We don't know who's acting like what. We're not there with them the 3 hours before the crime occurs to watch that dynamic and lack of control build. And whether that builds because of alcohol or builds because of tempers and lack of self-control, that starts to move that randomness needle down. You can end up seeing these things coming. So and that's why I answered very deliberately to Mr. Cox's question was, yes, for a law enforcement agency, it is difficult to try and get in front of those. For a community as a whole, not so much.
Would it be accurate to say that stopping businesses where shootings happen is a valid strategy to reduce overall gun crime, even though it might not prevent every instance of random crime? That the increase that you described gives reason to believe that this would be a great way to reduce gun crime, even if it can't solve the problem of random violence throughout the city?
I would not equate it to the location alone. It couldn't just be the address, and I'll probably open up the argument that Mr. Cox is writing in his notes right now, is there probably a number of locations across the city that the police are called to more often. Run the calls for service on Hamilton Place Mall. I'm pretty sure that we're there more often because of size and scope and the amount of our community that frequents it. But that doesn't mean we don't need to take deliberate steps to get into an increase in violent crime that continues to occur outside of an establishment where the propensity for violence builds, and it builds in close proximity to those most responsible for it. I believe a business does have a responsibility to educate its patrons on what's acceptable and what is not. I believe a business has a responsibility to put up as many deterrents towards violence and preying on others as possible. Again, I have not seen the operations deliberately from Sky Zoo, but what I have seen are the numbers of a specific location come up statistically significantly over the last 365 days.
One final question, and then I'm going to let council question you. Imagine that Sky Zoo did every possible, or any establishment, did every possible thing that an establishment could do, 1 million security guards, 1 million lights, all of that, and violence continued. Would it be appropriate to revoke a special permit in that instance, despite best efforts for the good of public safety?
I don't know that I can answer that.
Thank you.
I'll leave it at that then. I got to thank you, so that's the end of my sentence.
You ready? for council questions. Councilman Hester, is this a question for Chief Roddy?
No, this question for all of the staff.
Okay, let's, while Chief Roddy's up here, let's direct our questions for him. And then we'll direct those questions at the appropriate time. Councilwoman Coonrod, question for Chief Roddy? Councilman Ledford,
Mine's for the city attorney
about Chief Roddy's testimony, or,
about the special exceptions permit.
okay, go ahead, since she's there. Thank you, Chief. I think we're through with you.
Ms. O'Donnell, what does the special exceptions permit allow? And if it were revoked, how does that affect the business?
The special exceptions permit allows Misty Dawn Harris, who I'm not sure is with us this evening, to operate a nightclub in a C2 zone, which is not permissible unless there is a special exception permit. That was granted by City Council in 2011. Did I answer your question? They can't operate a nightclub without your permission. So it is up to the council may grant or revoke for any reason the special permit, and the reasons are enumerated here.
Okay. Prior to 2011, is that the opening date of Sky Zoo?
No, sir, I don't believe it's the opening date.
And this question actually, Mr. Chairman, might be helpful from Chief Roddy. Do we have any data or history before this? Basically, what I'm trying to ascertain is since 2011, when the special permit went in, we had no history of its operations. When the council passed it in good faith, I'm assuming based on now we have data.
Correct.
Okay. Chief, you want to try to take a swing at that?
CAD data will go back to about
2015. Okay.
We do have 3-year data compiled.
Mhm.
I will make a legal argument at the end. I think what the chief has testified to is that it is the current rise in the recent shooting that have, I think prior to 2011 is probably irrelevant to this because they weren't operating a nightclub, if that makes sense. But over from the data we have, we see an increase as chief testified.
My last question is, when Coyote Jack, since that was brought up in the testimony and used as a reference by both of you, are the numbers comparable to the number of calls and the numbers of incidences of violence, more or less than Coyote Jack's before action was taken?
The numbers that chief testified to, and he can answer this if he would like to, are comparable in that they're for a 365-day period. They're incomparable to the extent that the places are open on the same number of days per week. Is that correct?
It is. The sliding scale on Coyote Jack's is the 2019 calendar. So it's Jan 1 to December 31. The 365 that we have relative to Sky Zoo. Yeah, can we rename that? Because that's really difficult to say. Sky Zoo is 365 sliding from today. So it's not an actual same time of frame, but that's what we pulled the data. The other thing, an interesting thing, and it might be relevant to the conversation, talking about 3 days open versus 5 days, 7. But what's the volume of patronage? I don't know the comparison between that either. So there is a lot of data that could be pulled into this for the conversation that we just simply don't have here today for you.
Very good.
I would like to make another distinction if that's okay. This is a special permit related to zoning, where the council has given special permission for an out of principal use. We are not maintaining that the establishment is a public nuisance. We are not shutting it down. We are asking that you vote to revoke their permit. That is not the same thing that happened as Coyote Jack. So while it may be helpful to get some context, there is not a perfect factual scenario. The law is that city council may revoke the permit if I believe, and I'm not certain, that Coyote Jack's was found to be a public nuisance. We are not requesting that at this time.
Very good.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Thank you for that.
Councilwoman
clarification.
Hill, question for the city attorney or Chief Roddy?
City
Attorney.
attorney.
Okay.
Before we have questions for me, could we allow the proprietors to put on their proof? I think that some of this might come out in the wash, and it typically,
Well, let the councilwoman ask her question.
I just wanted to know what makes a nightclub a nightclub? Are there any specific hours that apply here versus a restaurant so that we understand by revoking the special permit?
yes, there are definitions, and I think it's 38.2 that a nightclub, I have it printed somewhere, is defined as having certain elements. The nightclub is what they applied for,
Mhm.
and that includes music, dance floor, after 11.
Okay, after
Um,
11. Okay,
Between the hours of 11 and 3 is really
okay,
the critical issue.
okay. So other places that serve food or alcohol would be able to be open until 11, just afterward is where we
In
move into
C2.
nightclub. Okay. all right,
Also, Coyote Jacks is, I think, form-based code, but
Okay, thank you
again,
very
it's not a
much.
perfect correlation.
Councilman Hester, a question for our city attorney. For who? Oh, okay, okay. We'll have him up in just a minute. All right, Ms. O'Donnell.
I will call now Chris Anderson. Say your full name and position for the council.
Chris Anderson, Director of Innovation, Delivery, and Performance for the City of Chattanooga, also Administrator Designate of the Department of Innovation, Delivery, and Performance.
Are you aware of an incident, the most recent shooting incident at Sky Zoo?
Yes,
Can you tell me roughly when that occurred?
around the last weekend of May, if memory serves.
Do you recall how many people were injured in that incident?
My recollection is 2 people were shot.
And do you recall how many people were killed?
1.
Is there any reason that that particular event was concerning to you?
Yeah, me as a citizen and as a member of the administration, where the mayor's made it very clear that gun violence is an issue that we take seriously.
Was it the first time you were aware of a shooting there?
No,
Is the repeat shooting event what gave you pause?
yes, it appeared to be a chronic issue there.
That's all I have for you now.
Let me ask you. You say you are aware of the May shooting at Sky Zoo?
Yes,
And how intimately aware of it are you? Are you aware that the shooter was captured?
yes, I am.
Okay, are you aware that Sky Zoo showed the police department the video that was responsible for capturing the shooter?
I don't know that that's true. No, I don't know if that's true or not.
So you don't know if that's true or not?
I
You
do
just
not.
know the shooting occurred, so you weren't that intimately familiar with it to know how he was captured.
I wouldn't characterize it that way, but I understand it's your job too. I just said I'm not sure that the police video helped them capture.
One more question. Would cooperation with the police bring back the deceased victim?
No.
Thank you. Does the council have any?
No
questions?
more, I have no lights at this time. I think the remainder of the questions are for the proprietor. If you'd like to bring them up at this time.
I have no more witnesses. I invite Mr. Cox to put on Misty Dawn Harris, the holder of the special exceptions permit, or anyone who has any evidence that negates the number of phone calls and incidents at their establishment.
I have Mr. Deliberation with me, who's part owner in Sky Zoo, and I can tell you. I
For
know
the
Mr.
record, just state your name again. and
My name is
your-
Doug Cox. I'm here for Sky Zoo.
Thank you.
And one thing I can relate to the board, to council members is when the special exceptions permit was granted, back then it was brand new. These were probably one of the first 2 or 3 that was granted a special exceptions permit. And to be quite honest, the government didn't know what to do and who was to be applied. We were told that the property owner needed to apply. Then we were told the business proprietor needed to apply. So Misty Dawn Powell, who is one of the owners of Sky Zoo's name, is on the special exceptions application. Mr. Dacrazio is one of the owners. It's an LLC, and Misty Dawn Powell and Leo Dacrazio own Sky Zoo. Okay, so that goes back to 2011. I may be mistaken, but I think it was one of the first special exception permits granted by the city, and I'll bet there aren't 2 or 3 more. It's basically for nightclub entertainment is what it's for, because if you're going to have sound, dance floors, lighting, that type of entertainment, you have to have a special exceptions permit so that you can operate after 11 o'clock. The only point for the special exceptions is for the designation of a nightclub. As I conveyed to council before, Mr. Dacrazio is not interested in maintaining a nightclub. Okay, he wants to convert his business to a sports bar, which is different clientele, a different setup, no dance floor, no noise, no lights. Restaurant, tables with seats at tables, menus. That's what he intends to do. He doesn't need a special exceptions permit for that. But he does need the zoning official to come down and confirm that that's the type of operation that he's running. This special exceptions permit has nothing to do with the service of his alcohol. It has everything to do with, can he operate as a nightclub after 11 o'clock? Mr. Dacrazio would like to testify about what's happened out there and the measures he takes. I'd also like to say, we had no chance to review any of the calls that were made that were presented here before council. We don't know who made them, where they came from. I know the police department has them and assigns them to this address, but we don't know anything about any of the particular calls, just that here are the numbers. So I'll ask Mr. Dacrazio to testify for you so you can understand. You would just state your name, please.
Leonardo da Corédio.
Slow it down.
Sorry. Leonardo da Corédio.
And Mr. Dacrazio, what is your affiliation with Sky Zoo?
I own 50% of Sky Zoo.
And how long have you owned 50% of Sky Zoo?
I believe since 2012.
Okay. If you would, what's your seating capacity there? What's the
299.
299?
Yes, sir.
What kind of an operation do you have there right now?
We have a nightclub.
And so what goes on within the nightclub? Do you have entertainment?
We have shows, we have dance floor, we have DJs, we have lighting, night food, drinks, but as a nightclub.
Okay. And as a nightclub, what's the racial makeup of your patrons?
90% African Americans.
Do you have security there?
I have 8 licensed security guards by the state of Tennessee.
Okay. And what is their function?
Check parking lots. I have 2 guys. Actually, I'm sorry. I have 10 guys. I have 2 guys when you first get in the parking lot to control the amount of cars that I can have there. I have 2 guys at the door and 6 guys walking around.
When your 6 guys are walking around, are they walking around inside of the building, outside of the building? Or both?
Inside the building, and they do kind of a rotation. So I have 5 guys inside. 1 leaves the back door, check around, go back to the front door, release the first one. They're always rotating, make sure that everybody's, we watching everything.
Before your customers are allowed to enter the premises, are they subject to search?
They are pat down, and we use a wand, a metal detector, to make
that-
sure that nobody has any weapons of any kind.
Is that everybody that comes in the door?
Anybody that comes to the door.
We're here, it seems like particularly about a shooting that occurred in May. Do you recall that?
Yes,
Do
I
you
was working the
recall-
parking lot.
Do you recall where it happened?
Yes, you know the whole story about why the guy died? Well, it has nothing to do with about Sky Zoo. The guy that died, Eric, I knew him, he was my friend. He had an affair with the other guy's wife. The guy found out, and the guy came to Sky Zoo and then go back to, we gave all the footage to the police officers because he came to Sky Zoo, I believe 12:15, sit down at the front bar and just wait for, didn't say a word to anything. At 2 o'clock, when we closed down, he went outside waiting for Eric to leave. When Eric passed by him, they exchanged some words, and Eric looked at him and say, "You want to fight?" And the guy, "No, you're here to die." Pulled the gun and shot him. Sadly, Eric was gonna die anywhere that night. The guy came there to kill him.
Was that on your cameras?
Yes, sir.
Was that provided? to
The shooting specifically was on the cameras, but the guy, when he walked in the club, we have, I think, like 20 cameras inside the place. And 3 cameras that we just put outside after the event, but doesn't show any altercation inside the Sky Zoo that night. And we gave that footage to the police department,
When the police show up on your property for any type of call, do you cooperate with them?
of course.
Do you have any obligations yourself to make calls to the
Um,
police department?
The beer code states that any kind of event need to be reported. So if I throw a piece of paper on you, I know that that's some pity, but that's assault. I got to call. Because if somebody called the police department and say, I got in a fight at Sky Zoo or something happened at Sky Zoo and I didn't report it first, I got a 3-day suspension minimum. So most of the calls that happen there, and I can tell it's for like is somebody disagree with something, push each other. I'm gonna call the police for assault. You guys, when you stay here and deal with the cops, you can. But if you wanna leave, I can hold you. But we call for anything. The beer board is kind of the beer code is kind of my Bible. I go by them. And if Officer Collins didn't come to my place in 2 years, I feel like I'm doing a great job. So we call for anything.
How many people does your establishment hold? I'm sorry.
299.
Have you had any shootings inside of it
No, you can get a Sky Zoo with a kid's knife.
with respect to the parking lot? Is it lit?
Yes.
And do your security guards ever police the parking lot when the patrons or the customers are out there?
Yes, when they walk in the car, when they walk in Sky Zoo parking lot, my guys always try to flash inside the car, see if they can see any bottles, any weapons, and they don't let nobody hang out inside the cars in the parking lot. Once you get in the parking lot, you either get out of the club or you get in the club or get out of the club. We don't let people walk around, they stay there. No. Sometimes you say no to people and they stay there. Then we call the police because, listen, I got a patrons here that try to get in. We told them that they can't, they hang out in the parking lot. So we call the police for that too.
Are your premises subject to inspection by electrical? And
Yes, we just went, I think like last week, went to a mechanical, electrical, fire marshal, all the inspections that you can name it.
And they came to your premises?
Yes, and we pass out.
How often does that happen?
Happened before, like maybe like 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
And I mean, they are, of course, they always gonna found something they're not happy, but it's a little stuff that we fix like in a couple of days.
Okay. Any comments you want to make about the number of calls that have been made or assigned to you in the Sky Zoo?
Again, we call for everything. So we didn't have access because we got the letter on Wednesday. I wish I could have more time so we could look on where the call was from. And I'm at Sky Zoo every day, so I can probably remember every call that was made by us. And 90% of the calls made is like something little that happened, but we got a call anyway, like shootings. If my guy's in the front door and we heard a shooting or a car passing by shooting, we will call the police. Listen, we just heard a shooting. A lot of times happen on the apartment, on that in town suites across the street. We call anyway. If there is a drunk guy walking across the street, we call the police. I feel it's my duty call to make sure that nothing worse happens.
That's all the questions I have for Mr. Dawson.
Madam Attorney, you got any cross?
A brief cross-examination. You said if there is a drunk guy walking across the street, you would call the police.
Yes, ma'am.
Has that happened?
Oh, yes.
Was that across the street from your building?
Yeah, right across Easy Palm.
So what?
On Easy Palm, that palm shop across the street. Happened a couple of times.
What's the closest bar to Sky Zoo?
There is a bar, Bud's. There is a bar right across from a Mexican place, right across from the lower market. They had a little joint there for a while. They didn't have a license, but they have a bar.
How close is the closest bar to Sky Zoo?
I will guess Bud's.
How far is that?
10 minutes walking.
10 minutes walking.
Mm,
So the closest bar is 10 minutes walking.
mm.
So the drunk guy that you called on could have been from your establishment.
No, ma'am, because we have cameras there. We are prepared. We are trained to don't overserve. If you drunk, I will drive you home.
That's very good. And I want to make clear that no one is blaming you for any of this. The question is not whether you made any effort to keep your premises safe.
Mhm.
The question is simply, is it safe? And you've testified about, you have 6 guys walking around.
Mhm.
And you have 2 at the door, is that correct?
Yes.
Were 6 guys walking around on the night that 2 people were shot?
Yes.
So,
They didn't have the weapons inside the club. The guy that shot had his gun inside the car. When we last call, he left the club first, went to his car and got his gun. He waited until Eric passed by him, get off the car, and then shot him.
and,
I can check people's car.
and your 6 guys can't stop that from happening.
Can I check cars? Is that legal? If it was legal, I'll be doing.
Were your 6 guys able to stop that shooting?
And there's no Superman to stop a shooting, man. The guy will gonna die anywhere. You talk about close down Sky Zoo and all the gun violence will disappear. They just go to the next place. At least the people that come to Sky Zoo, they know that inside they are safe. Outside, I'm sorry, but Chattanooga Police Department, you know how many times I call the police and I didn't, the guy that show up, the officer that show up there didn't do anything because he said, what's my problem? You know what that changed? 2 months ago when I called internal affairs because he tried to arrest me. 3 times that happened, that something happened in Chattanooga. Police officers come to Sky Zoo and ask me to close down. I didn't have the proper license. I didn't have my guys on a license. All my guys had paperwork in the hand. We are licensed. The officer like, I don't have anything. I don't have anything. I can prove that to you because just on the 3rd time I had a camera on me. Police officer came to Sky Zoo, told me to shut down. Like this, I want you to shut down. And I was like, for what? Can't shut down. And I'm not gonna shut down. Let me finish now. I'm not gonna shut down. You under arrest. I'm under arrest for what? I make up the charge later, putting his hand on his handcuffs. I look at him, officer, do you know that you're on camera right now? And he told me, I don't care. I don't like you. I'm here to shut you down. I'm gonna shut you down. Then the other officer came to me. I forgot his name. I think Lieutenant Holmes came to me and said, Leo, there is something going on in town. We had to stop some really bad stuff from happening. We think that they're going to come here. Can you shut down and just make everybody's lives easier? Okay, I shut down right away. I'm here to help the police. I help the police. I call all the time, every time that I can. I give all the information that I can. I give my DVRs, cameras, everything that I can. I'm being targeted right now.
No one is saying that you haven't made an effort to stop the violence, okay? And I'm not aware of you being placed under arrest.
I didn't place it. He told me he was going to arrest me. And I say, for what? And he told me, I will make up the charge later. I have this on video. I called the internal affairs for that. And then she asked me to make some kind of reports, the video is to my lawyer. Is that a police officer? Since that happened, every time we call the police officers, they go there and they help us out. Because before that was, you gone, is your problem.
So just for the sake of clarity, well, I don't think that any of what you just testified to is relevant to the period that's here.
Mhm.
Were you ever arrested?
Don't answer the question.
Were you arrested?
Yes. I was arrested before.
You were arrested, you were
Mhm.
taken to the.
Yeah, Hamilton
what
College,
were you
yeah.
charged with?
I don't need to answer the question.
So you're arrested?
Yeah,
Your
I was arrested.
testimony is
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
were arrested,
yeah. I had a cigarette of weed with me.
Oh,
Did that make you happy? Is that bad?
he didn't have to testify that he was arrested, but now he said he got arrested for possession of marijuana. So
Okay.
that, I mean, it wasn't relevant to begin with, but I'm now allowed to cross-examine him.
Okay.
Madam Attorney, I think we have some questions for the proprietor from the council. Can we proceed with those?
Certainly.
Councilman Hester.
Thank you, Chairman. Based on historical past violation of Sky's Law, what practices could change? For instance, if Councilman Leonard and I, we had a fight, what are the consequences for our action?
If you guys touch each other, I will call the police and say that we had a fight. If you guys threaten each other, I will call the police and say these two guys just threaten each other and they say they're gonna beat each other at Waffle House. Oh no, once in a fight, oh, it's 30 days out.
What's the name of security?
We have my own proprietary license. I'm probably the only club that have their license.
You good, Councilman? Okay. Councilwoman Coonrod, I think did you have a question for the proprietor earlier?
Had to collect my thoughts on a few
Okay.
things. My question is, one, to bring up the guy, I think you called his name Eric, that he was having an affair. I mean, I believe that was inappropriate.
I'm
To
sorry.
even mention, I'm more concerned about the public safety aspect of it. So him having an affair has
Is-
nothing to do with
So it's
it.
just because I don't want people to think that every person that's there is a gang member. It's not every person that goes there is a gang member. It's just, and to try to make up like
Sir,
the guy because of
let
that.
the councilwoman
Sorry.
continue with the question. Thank
So
you.
after, I'm really disturbed. I want to first say, because here we talking about a female on part ownership, and we're talking about Black and brown people that's got part ownership. I'm in no way trying to, run you out of business, but my role is to make sure to do what's right, what's fair, and making sure that we're, reducing violence,
Mhm.
crime, and this place has been a tractor. It's attracting crime to the area, which I have some concerns. So if you were to turn in your license or whatever, what measures are you gonna take to make it safe? Because you said you got 8 people
Mhm.
already, so that tells me that it's not safe. Now, I will say I'm familiar with your establishment because it looks the same from when it was Red Lobster, then turned into Metropolis and all of those things, but, and I done parted in there, I'll just say that. But what will you do to make it safer for people to come in? Because this guy, apparently he felt like the environment was cool enough before, and like many others too, felt like your environment was cool enough to where he can go at last call to go to his car to get the gun to come. That's a problem.
Mhm.
So what are you gonna do to try to fix that and to try to,
Honestly, on that specific case, I think that the guy didn't care. Because I had 2 guys, maybe 30 feet from him, was parking lot is leaked. Everybody saw he coming, everybody saw he's going. He didn't do that stuff because he wanna hide. He was very sad. Okay, but about like what I'm gonna do to curve that down is I don't want to be a nightclub anymore. I'm giving my license away. I'm giving my special exemption zoning away. If that will help me be open and stop some of this violence, my concern is this. Is happening in Chattanooga, is not going to disappear. They don't come to my place. They'll go where? You think they're just going to vanish? They're going to keep doing. What needs is more, maybe not, I'm not saying more places like mine, but more people like me, because I have most of my staff work at Coyote Jack. They didn't call all the time. I call all the time. If every time that I call, I'll be happy if I had 2 police officers in front of my parking lot every night. I asked the cops for that. For a little time they did, and then they said they couldn't do anymore. I'll be happy if I could hire a police officer to work at Sky Zoo after 10 o'clock. I want to help, but I want to stay open. Punishing me or removing my license is just not going to change because I'm giving you my license back, my section. I don't want to be a nightclub anymore. I'm old. I want to go home and hang out with my kids. I don't want to die. You think I'm scared? I'm scared for my people too. So tuning a sport bar, I think that's going to lower a lot because by the time that I tune a sport bar, my capacity is no longer 299. Going to drop to probably 120 because I have pool tables and dartboards everywhere. I can have that many people.
Councilwoman, does that answer your question? We do have a couple more lots.
Just one more thing
Okay.
that I'm gonna say, Chair, is that the club, you already know the type people that you attract to the club. And we just gonna be honest, you got every gang member affiliations in this
But it doesn't
spot.
happen inside.
You got drug dealers in this spot. You got people that's gonna bring bad behavior to your establishment. It's
Mhm.
okay for you to own it because
Mhm.
we've already said the percentage of the people that's giving you money in this club, right?
Mhm.
So you don't, I'm not asking for lies and cover-ups to try to sell yourself as to why your business need to be open. I understand that, but I understand the population that you're catering to too. And so even if you turn in your license, you surrender your license, it's not going to stop the behavior that we're talking about, which is this place is a public nuisance. It's a public health crisis. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about the fact that you want to no longer operate as a nightclub and you want to be a bar. Save that for somebody else. We're talking about how many people lives that you done lost on your property.
Am I
And
fault?
you're saying that it's nothing that you can do to change that. That's it. Case dismissed.
I can add more cameras. I can add more.
Hold on one second. You good, Councilwoman? Councilwoman Burrs, you've got a question for the proprietor.
And a comment as well. I've been listening to all of this. And fortunately or unfortunately, I've heard all of this at beer board hearings. I've here with Mr. Cox doing his fine job and with you testifying, sir. But this is about a very narrow issue. And that is, we granted you a special permit. And as it's brought to us, have you met the criteria for this permit to be revoked? I'm with Councilwoman Coonrod in that all your good ideas to do things in the future, I laud you for that. However, this is very narrow. Does the behavior up until this time, or they do the incidences up to this time, meet the criteria for revoking your special permit? That's it. It's interesting that you would voluntarily give it up to open a sports bar where I believe you think you can carry on just as you are, but you don't need a special permit. Is that it?
No, ma'am.
So if you were opening as a sports bar, I'm just curious. I think that's amazing. Mr. Cox, good idea. What I'm trying to figure out is if you open as a sports bar, what are your hours as a sports bar?
The hours that my location allowed me to.
That you
Should
can
be
stay open till 3?
according to the zoning, yes.
Right. And you can serve alcohol?
Until 3 o'clock according to the zoning.
Okay. All right. So interesting. I think that what I would like to do is stay issue focused, Mr. Chair. And the issue is that I just defined it. And whenever the council's ready, I think Mr. Hester had a motion to make. It's up to you, Madam Attorney or Mr. Chair. I've heard
I
all
want
I
to make
need to
sure
hear.
everybody presented their evidence to this council that they had to present. I think we do have a couple of questions still remaining that I'd like to go around the horn. Councilman Byrd?
There we go.
There you go.
Mr. Leo, this is a trend, and I want everybody to really understand too about, what he said about 90% of his establishment and how it looks, how it goes. We have a trend in our city that has to be addressed. I can name clubs like Deep Blue, The Whole Note, Fire and Ice. We done heard these names, Coyote Jack, and now we're sitting here talking about your establishment, Sky Zoo. Mr. Leo, I know you have opened up and helped a lot of people. I know you have rap battles and let the kids come in and do their thing.
No.
You used to. I remember
No,
that.
Never did.
Uh,
I never allowed rap battles.
Okay, I just remember a guy promoting J Fever and some guys
Yes,
coming up
and
there doing that.
When I
So,
found out what he was doing, I couldn't.
right. But I just remember before that, you shut down a lot of stuff and made it so that you were under the radar for a long time and wasn't nothing happening because you implemented a dress code, you implemented an age limit, and your security was very strict on who they let in.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, when you do that, I've been in the club business. You don't get a lot of the financial gain that you would get when you open up to a lot of other people. I think you know what to do to fix this situation because you've done it before.
Mhm.
And I just encourage you to fall back onto those values that you had when your club wasn't as frequent as it is now, but you still were able to run your establishment because what we're having right now, the system is broken. The whole special exempt permit, the special gathering permit, whole thing is messed up. And we do as a council need to reevaluate how we're issuing these and how we're taking them away and hold people like yourself in our community accountable. So I just want to say that to you.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Leo, what's the capacity of the building?
299.
Two,
299.
so 299.
Mhm.
And that's enforced strictly,
Oh, yes.
strictly?
Mhm.
And the hours are till 3 AM.
We usually close at 3 a.m. 3 a.m. is what's illegal to sell alcohol. We want to make sure that everybody gets out of the building by 3 a.m. So usually let's call 2:40.
Last call is 2:40.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You said a moment ago, I want to make sure that I have this clear. Zoning, the hours were in zoning, but the hours are actually in this special permit. Is that correct?
The special permit allowed me to be a nightclub. The zoning allowed me to sell liquor until 3 o'clock in the morning.
3 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay.
What happened is just to give me special permit so I could be a nightclub.
Okay, thank you. for
And
that.
I was, sorry.
So my next question is kind of a personal one, and it means a lot to me to hear what your answer is. Do you consider your business a community benefit or a hazard?
It's a benefit because when people are inside, they're safe. That's the stuff about it. Nobody gets hurt inside Sky Zoo. The people part of what I cannot control is outside. The violence on the streets is not inside that place. So if you, I think Councilman Byrd you went to Sky Zoo before, right? Inside Sky Zoo is not what you think. Again, not every black person is a gang member. I have a bunch of people that go there, sit down, drink a beer, 30, 45-year-old ladies drinking there and chilling and hanging out because they know that inside they are protected.
Let
The
record-
problem is the
let the
outside.
record show, I asked no question revolving around that answer. Do you think that in today's, as far as the community is concerned, and there is a concern, I've heard it from my colleagues, I've heard it all the way out in District 4, is there a way for you to reinvent this business?
I think by tuning a full-time sport bar, again, I know that Councilwoman is making fun of me, but as a full-time sport bar, we're going to decrease the number of customers. It's a different music. We no longer have a DJ. We no longer play the music the nightclubs play. There is no lights. There is no dance floor. There is nothing like that. It's just a place to play pool, throw darts, and play poker, legal poker. So I think it will change a lot. And I can keep my older crowd, the younger crowd, gonna go someplace else. Not
Since-
me anymore.
Since you mentioned Councilwoman Burz's question, I want to ask you this. You have no intention, though, of cutting back the hours. You're holding firm to that 3 a.m.
And I probably go up to 1:30. But there is no way I can survive as a business if I stop at 11.
Who's playing sports? Well, okay. So the hours are off the table for you.
The hours are
Okay, let's
given
go
to me by the
capacity.
zoning.
Would you voluntarily reduce your capacity?
It will be impossible for me to put more than 150 people in the place.
Let me redirect just a little
Thank
bit.
you, Chairman. That's
to
all
the-
I have.
Thank you. Okay. Madam Attorney, do you have any other witnesses that you need to call at this time?
I don't have any witnesses. I do have a couple of very quick points of clarity, if that pleases the council. If you're satisfied.
Okay, all right. At this time, we'll excuse our guest. And
sir.
I'll give you a closing remark and the attorney a closing remark. Mr. Cox.
Well, got a few extra pieces of paper here, but not the one I need. I'll keep my closing brief because I think we've heard what we need to hear. It is clear by our city code that this body grants and revokes special permits. And it says, upon notice to the owner, which they received, and after a public hearing, which this has been, the council is to decide based on the factors in section 9 of the code. The only two we rely on today are C, upon the recommendation of the Chattanooga Police Department, which we heard from Chief Roddy about the alarm that his department fell with the increase of calls to the police, and particularly the severity and the violent nature of the crimes. Now, I would like to point out that every business owner is under the same duty to report crimes on their own property. So that the fact that this owner has called many times is wonderful. We require that of establishment owners, and he is doing his duty. But the ordinance reads in number 2, number and occurrences of police department calls after granting a special exceptions permit. And the testimony today has shown that in the past 365 days, there has been an alarming increase in calls and crimes over the previous year. All of that happened after the granting of the special permit. So the previous 365 days, there have been the number and occurrences of calls that Chief Roddy testified to. It is important to note that we are not here to say that this business owner has failed to take whatever measures are necessary. I've not been to Sky Zoo. I've heard about it. They are required to take, by their special permit, they're required to take some safety measures, including around their parking lot, which is in their premises. This special permit requires them to have fencing around the perimeter. It requires them to have 2 outdoor security officers licensed by the state. So there was never an issue of, or it doesn't matter if the violence occurs inside of the building or outside of the building. It's the same premises and it falls under the same special exceptions permit. It is also important to note that the reason we're here today is simply to decide whether or not he keeps his special permit. Whatever future plans he has, great. I would imagine that if this body decides to let him keep his special permit, he'll probably keep operating as a nightclub. If this body decides to revoke his special permit, he will no longer be able to operate as a nightclub, but he will be entitled to use whatever principal use is allowable under C2, whether that is a sports bar or anything else as defined by the code. It's not our job today to help him figure out what's next. It's our job today to figure out how do we vote right now? And based upon the ordinance that allows you to revoke the permit that you granted, based upon the recommendation of our police chief and based upon the number and occurrences of violence, I think you are well within your right to decide to revoke or not. I leave that to you. I have no vote. I would also just mention that no part of this analysis from an investigatory standpoint has had to do with race. I'm not satisfied, and I would have liked to question Mr. Leo about how he gets his numbers on race. He's certain that 299 people come in, but he testified to 90% Black, and that seems pretty specific. I'm not aware of the recent shootings involving any Black people. So I would just ask you to reserve the issue of race as it is not relevant. The only issue here that is relevant is the number of calls. Regardless of parking lot, race, did the owner make the call or did a citizen make the call? None of those things matter. So please just don't be confused and make your vote based on the information and the power that the ordinances grant you. Thank you.
Mr. Cox?
Yes. Appreciate your all's time. I'll be brief also. One thing I would say is this, the gun violence obviously is not a Sky Zoo problem. It's a societal problem. You know, we've had 100 shootings in Chattanooga. We're not shutting down the sidewalks. People are still walking around, and I would think that your constituents are much more concerned about getting shot walking down the street than they are going to Sky Zoo, because they're probably not going to Sky Zoo. I would say that the ordinance is rather vague. It says number of occurrences. There's no number there to give you. It's not scaled to the size of the business. It's not what kind of complaints were made. There's really not much there. It leaves it very subjective. But aside from that, he says he's going to convert his business to a sports bar. And I would like y'all to think about that. You've been to a sports bar and you've been to a nightclub, and it's totally different atmospheres. You're going to attract different clientele. It's not going to be the same. It's not some ruse that we're trying to, oh, we'll just do this and have all these people in here, because you're not allowed to have any entertainment there. You're not allowed to have a TV. You're not allowed to have a dance floor, a band, the lighting, the noise, all that's going to be toned down when he reopens and remodels his business. I think you can take him at his word on that. And he does what he can out there to maintain law and order on his premises. Like he said, he can't compel people to allow him to go through their vehicle, but he searches them when they come in. So he's doing everything he can. And like the city attorney said, we're not actually blaming him for these problems here, but you are affecting his livelihood. But I do think that you can have some confidence in what Mr. Dockerazio tells you when he says he's going to convert it to a sports bar. And I don't think you're going to see the same clientele and the same type of activity out there.
All right, we've heard from both sides. I now close the hearing on the special permit of Sky Zoo. The floor is now open for consideration of a motion on the special permit for Sky Zoo. Councilman Hester.
I applaud Doc Rosse's efforts, but based on the safety, Chattanooga is a beautiful city, and it's a tourist destination for most folks. But based on the police calls, the shooting, I make a motion to revoke Sky Zoo special permit. It's a danger to the community.
We have a motion on the floor to revoke the special permit for Sky Zoo. Do I have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to revoke the permit for Sky Zoo. Are there any questions or comments before we take a vote? Madam Clerk, I'm sorry. Oh, I see. Okay. Councilman Byrd?
I just want to say to this body, like, we have a lot of work to do. I feel real silly right now. And that's just me, y'all, because despite what this body do today, Mr. Leo, you're not on trial today. The city of Chattanooga is, and he's going to be able to go do his work. And it's going to be a lot of other situations like this. Nothing really has changed. And this is not on no disrespect to you, Mr. Leo. It's just this body, we got to fix our system, y'all. This is crazy. But that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Councilwoman Coonrod?
Thank you, Chip. I just want to make sure I'm understanding what our city attorney. So if we vote to say we revoking his special permit, he converts to a sports bar, he's still gonna be open till 2:00, and he's still gonna be able to serve alcohol. Is that correct?
That is, I don't know if that's correct. It doesn't matter tonight. Tonight, the only issue is whether or not he can operate a nightclub. If he
Okay.
wants, if you say he can't operate a nightclub, then he can open a sports bar or anything else permissible at C2.
Right, that he seems to think converting to a sports bar is gonna change the clientele. I beg to differ because Bud's is a sports bar and they all the way live. Same kind of clientele, just different skin color. But what I will say is this, we worked on Coyote Jacks. The mayor, along with council, petitioned or got with Neil Pinkston about declaring that location as a public nuisance, and they closed it down eventually. I would like for us as a council to move towards that along with our mayor and his staff if we really want to have something done. Because what we've just done now is a pony show. Like, I get it, but now we've done nothing. We've done nothing. This is sports bar or late night entertainment venue is still gonna continue to be the same thing that's happening. So what's our next step? What we plan, like, we need to, talk about that Tuesday as strategic planning, but I would like to see something
let-
harsher done.
You good, Councilwoman?
I'm good.
Okay. Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been doing my best to digest the information that's been provided, and I think it's boiled down to me, for me, is that this is no Sky Zoo, whatever, that's irrelevant to me with what I'm about to say. What I'm about to say is very important, I think, to where I'm going to vote, and that is, the problem is in this ordinance. Mr. Cox was right. It's vague. It's too general. And I think that is probably to allude to Councilman Byrd's point as well. That's on us. And so I think that we need to take responsibility for crafting a special exceptions permit that is beneficial to the overall community. And I think that's where our problem tonight lies. And I think that this is an opportunity to take a really good, serious look at this ordinance and do it right. Thank you, Chairman.
Councilwoman Hill?
Knowing the specificity of what we are discussing today, the number of calls that have been made, and how that applies to maintaining the privilege of this special permit. I'm a parent, sounds like you're a parent. Something that you said really stood out to me, Mr. Leo. You said, I'm scared too. I'm scared for my staff. I don't want to die. So as I sit here and my job is to determine if a special exception permit privilege should be allowed to go on, whether or not it is in fact an especially useful tool in stopping violence, I do think it is one that is in fact a privilege, and that in this instance could be an appropriate step in helping our city be somewhat safer, if only because we are closing a door to something that you yourself have said makes you frightened, that you don't want to die. And sometimes being in a position of authority means removing a choice that was never in our best interest in the first place. I know that's something that I do as a parent, and it's a heavy responsibility here as a city council person. But that is why I'll be making the vote I will tonight.
I am seeing no other hands at this time. We do have a motion on the floor to revoke the special permit of Sky Zoo with a proper second. I'm seeing no other hands. Madam Clerk, would you give us a roll call, please?
Councilwoman Hill. Councilman Ledford. Councilman Hester.
Yes.
Councilwoman Byrd. Councilwoman Dottley.
Yes.
Councilman Byrd.
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod. Vice Chairman Smith.
Yes.
Chairman Henderson.
Yes.
9 yeses.
Motion to revoke carries 9-0. All right, council, moving on to our next item. I need a motion on the minutes, please. We have a motion to approve the minutes with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Coonrod. Councilman Byrd.
Yes.
Councilwoman Dottley.
Yes.
Councilwoman Byrd. Councilman Hester.
Yes.
Councilman Ledford. Councilwoman Hill. Vice Chairman Smith.
Yes.
Chairman Henderson.
Yes.
9 yeses.
The ayes have it. Now moving into your order of business for city council this evening. We have one ordinance on final reading. Madam Clerk, would you read 5A, please?
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 14, Article 2, Division 3, Section 1475, application for examination required, contents and qualifications, and Section 1481, licenses and certificates required in Chapter 24, Article 1, Section 24.1, and general definitions, intelligent transportation systems.
What's the pleasure of the council? We have a motion on the floor to approve with a proper second. Any questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Hill. Councilman Ledford. Councilman Hester.
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs. Councilwoman Dolly.
Yes.
Councilman Byrd.
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod. Vice Chairman Smith. Chairman Henderson.
Yes.
9 yeses.
Motion to approve carries 9-0. We have no ordinances on first reading this afternoon. Moving now to resolutions under economic development. Madam Clerk, 7A, please.
A resolution to make certain findings relating to the Purge Graphite LLC project to delegate certain authority to the Industrial Development Board of the City of Chattanooga to authorize the mayor to enter into and execute an agreement for payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes.
Councilwoman Dotley.
This is a great project for our city that will create new jobs and economic mobility. So with that, I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve 7A with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Coonrod. Councilman Byrd.
Yes.
Councilwoman Dolly. Councilwoman Burrs. Councilman Hester.
Yes.
Councilman Ledford. Councilwoman Hill. Vice Chairman Smith.
Yes.
Chairman Henderson.
Yes.
9 yeses.
All right, Madam Clerk, if there are no objections from the council, would you now take 7B, C, and D together as a group, please?
Yes. Item B, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a Sixth Amendment to lease agreement with East Nuga LLC in substantially the form attached for senior activity meeting space and a portion of Eastgate Town Center located at 5600 Brainerd Road for an additional term of 1 year for the amount of $7,259.74 per month for a total amount of $87,116.88 per year. Item C, a resolution declaring surplus of the property located at 332 East Martin Luther King Boulevard and further identified as tax parcel number 145ED009. Item D, a resolution authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a conservation services agreement for 2021 through 2022 with the Trust for Public Land and substantially the form attached for a term of 1 year from July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022 for an amount not to exceed $100,000 to be paid in 4 quarterly installments of $25,000.
Councilwoman Burrs. We have a motion on the floor to approve items 7B, C, and D with a proper second. Are there any questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Hill. Councilman Ledford. Councilman Hester.
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs. Councilwoman Dotley. Councilman Byrd.
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod. Vice Chairman Smith. Chairman Henderson.
Yes.
9 yeses.
So moved. Moving now to Public Works. Madam Clerk, if there's no objections, E, F, and G together, please.
Item E, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to approve the change order number 1 final for Factory to You Fence of Knox, Inc. of Knoxville, Tennessee for contract number R20017208, Summit of Softball Complex Improvements from the Easter Tornado 2020 fencing replacement for a decreased amount of $17,670 to release the contingency amount of $12,000 for a revised contract amount of $95,230. Item F, a resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to award contract number W210020201 manhole rehabilitation blanket contract for year 1 of a 3-year term with yearly renewals to Video Industrial Services, Inc.
of Birmingham, Alabama for the contract amount $259,251 plus a contingency amount of $26,000 for an amount not to exceed $285,251 for year one. Item G, a resolution authorizing the city of Chattanooga to apply for and if awarded, accept the 2021 Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Grant, CMAQ, from the Tennessee Department of Transportation for an amount not to exceed $3,025,000.
Councilman Ledford.
Move to approve.
We have a motion on the floor to approve items 7E, F, and G with a proper second. Questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Coonrod, Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dottley, Councilwoman Burrs, Councilman Hester,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford, Councilwoman Hill, Vice Chairman Smith, Chairman Henderson,
Yes.
9 yeses.
Motion carries 9-0. Moving now to purchases. Ms. Julia.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
We've got 4 purchases this evening. The first is from Citywide Services Division of Public Works. This is the first of 2 renewals for a blanket contract to supply concrete pipe. This renewal will include a price increase of 23.3% on the lines listed for a total annual cost estimate of $300,000. The second is also from Citywide Services Division of Public Works. This is the first of 2 renewals for a blanket contract to supply high visibility work clothing. This renewal will include a price increase of 5.5% on the lines listed for a total annual cost estimate of $90,000. The third is from the Parks Division of Public Works. This is to update the total amount for 3 new blanket contracts awarded on June 22nd for turf treatment and athletic field maintenance at select city parks. Parks Division had asked for $75,000 to be sent to council after purchases have been sent for approval and finalized. This is an increase of $25,000 from the previously approved $50,000 for a total annual estimated spend of $75,000. The fourth and final purchase is for the Chattanooga Police Department. This is a new blanket contract for analytical support. The contract is for 3 years. The original bid opening date of April 30th received only 1 bid. The bid was re-advertised with a new bid opening of May 10th. No other bids were received. The award will go to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga as the best bid meeting specifications for the city of Chattanooga.
All right, council, you've heard the purchases this afternoon. What is the pleasure of the council?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor to approve tonight's purchases with a proper second. Any questions or comments before we vote? Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilwoman Coonrod, Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Dottley, Councilwoman Burrs, Councilman Hester,
Yes.
Councilman Ledford, Councilwoman Hill, Vice Chairman Smith, Chairman Henderson.
Yes.
9 yeses.
So moved. Thank you. Moving now to committee reports. Councilwoman Coonrod. Councilman Byrd.
No report.
Councilwoman Dottley. Vice Chair Smith. Councilwoman Burrs. Councilman Hester.
No report.
I believe we are having a Public Works Committee meeting next week, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Ledford.
Mr. Chair, Planning and Zoning did meet today where we covered all items on our agenda, including the new C3 flexible zoning tool that is, will be directed by Mr. Bridger's office to bring us an alternate version with additive.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hill. Okay, very well. Thank you. Moving now to other businesses, other business. Looks like we do have a couple of board appointments this afternoon. Councilman Hester.
I am appointing Leanne Jones to YFD board. Also, I'm reappointing Chrissy Rashid to Police Advisory Review Committee. Thank you.
Okay, I think, and our attorney is, I believe we have to take a vote on the Police Advisory Board. Okay. Would you like to put that in the form of a motion?
I want a motion to reapprove Chrissy Rashid to the Police Advisory Review Committee.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to reappoint Christy Rashid to the Police Advisory Board with a proper second. Any questions before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Hill, Councilman Ledford, Councilman Hester,
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs, Councilwoman Dottley, Councilman Byrd,
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod, Vice Chairman Smith? Chairman Henderson?
Yes,
9 yeses.
so moved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chip. And then one of the other boards was that I needed to make an appointment for. It was left off. That was the HEB board. The resume and everything was sent out. It was supposed to be on here.
Okay, if you want to make that motion tonight, we'll see where we go.
Yes. So I want to make a motion to reappoint Kanika Wellington Jones to the Park Committee.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor with a proper second. Any questions or comments before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Coonrod?
Yes.
Councilman Byrd?
Yes.
Councilwoman Dottley?
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs? Councilman Hester?
Yes.
Councilman Ledford? Councilwoman Hill? Vice Chairman Smith? Chairman Henderson?
Yes,
9 yeses.
motion to reappoint carries. Now you have one more.
Now, make a motion to appoint Kanika Everhart Jeter to the HEB board.
Now we have a motion on the floor to appoint Ms. Everhart to the HEB board with proper second. Questions or comment before we vote? Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Hill? Councilman Ledford? Councilman Hester?
Yes.
Councilwoman Burrs? Councilwoman Dottley?
Yes.
Councilman Byrd?
Yes.
Councilwoman Coonrod?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Smith? Chairman Henderson?
Yes,
9 yeses.
so moved. You good, Councilwoman? Okay, thank you. That takes care of all of our agenda items this afternoon. We now come to the time in our agenda that we recognize persons wishing to address the council. By a show of hands, do we have anybody that would like to address the council this afternoon? Okay. I'm going to ask our attorney to read the rules to address the council, and you can begin coming to the podium.
All right. Any speaker wishing to address the council needs to be recognized by Chairman Henderson at this microphone. The rest of you can line up behind him. When you start, please state your name and district number. You may address this council only on issues that are within the legislative and quasi judicial authority of the council. And you may each have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Hold on one second, Mr. IT. Can you get us a 3-minute screen down here, please? Thank you. Mr. Harris?
Yeah, Sylvester Harris, Councilman Byrd is my councilman. I'm speaking on the behalf of my sister. She has an issue with them closing the recreation center at Eastgate Mall. We all beginning to be seniors now, and those that's not on the council that will be a senior one day. If you don't have your AARP card, you will be getting it soon. But the kind of money that I've seen that y'all was paying per month, I think we could find a building to accommodate these people. Can y'all stand up, the ones that's out in these ladies and gentlemen needs places to go, just like young youth. Once we get a certain age, we need a little bit of exercise and we need a little bit of stimulation mentally and physically. And I was just wondering if the council in each district could find in their heart to listen to these people and try to find them some type of solution, because the people that's out here that you're representing is in your council. So if you can help them, and like I say, give my sister a shout. She raised me from 15 up when my mother passed away, and she had my back all my life. And I said, if I could have her back for anything, I'm always step tall for her. So thank you for all you did for me, my big sister. And help out how you can, and give up my time to the rest. Thank you.
Okay, but before we go anywhere, Chief, come up here just a minute. So tonight, just to be very clear, the council approved another year for the lease at Eastgate.
Yes, sir, correct. So the council voted tonight to approve the lease for 1 additional year. We are not and never have wanted to close the senior center. In fact, we just reopened the senior center not that long ago. So yeah, I'm not sure where the misinterpretation is, but we are not trying to close the senior center. we have one more year of lease, and we will work with the community to see if there is a better place, that has a better cost structure, better amenities, those sorts of things. But until such time that there is a replacement, we're not going to be closing anything.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everybody understood that we did renew it for another year. And we'll either keep it there or find a better replacement.
Yep.
that
Thank
correct?
you. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, my name is Dan Creed, and I've been involved in the Eastgate Senior Center for about 10 years and currently serve on the board. I have a handout of statistics from 2018, the last full year, that I'll pass along with you. You've already gotten it. And these, during that time, we have around 18 weekly programs. The average attendance per month is a little over 2,000, and that totals over 25,000 per year. That's in 2018. There's a potential to add 5 to 10 more activities for space if space were available. The current square footage is 11,400. Jerome and Angela have scheduled the space to accommodate as many activities as possible. This is a diverse group of seniors who support one another. In some cases, more than biological family. Some have family members that are local, but many have no one, and that's where the Eastgate Senior Center meets the community need. I've been attending the center for a short time. I had been attending the center for a short time when I was hospitalized. And I had a blood clot near my heart. I was in the emergency room. They sent me out for some tests. Then I returned to my room for the night. After having the test, 5 of my line dancers were standing around my bed. I didn't even know their names. But I knew mine, but they knew mine. From that day on, they were no longer just my friends. They were my family. More space would mean more activities. More activities would mean greater attendance, and greater attendance would mean more family for us. A famous philosopher once said in the movie Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. In the case of the senior center, the same idea applies. If you build it, more seniors will come. During the decade of my attendance at the center, the location of the senior center has been a topic of discussion among city government officials. I'm asking you today to make the decision to give the Eastgate Senior Center a permanent home and let us retire our t-shirts in storage along with our river bend pins. Thank you.
Councilwoman Burrs, did you have a
I
comment?
I do. For all of you, you're in my district and I come to your parties and your line dancing. It's hard for me to even keep up with you. And the wonderful things you do. Liz Henderson is one of my mentors. She taught me when I started. I don't know if you remember it, Liz, but I now am a personal trainer at the Y, but it's because you taught me. So thank you very much. You know, I started getting these emails and Brent, where are you? So
Yes, ma'am.
So the deal is, I don't know where it came from that we were going to close the senior center. I started getting all these emails. The emails that I got from you all is the administration was looking to keep a senior center. What would it look like? Do you need more and better space? Do you need different kind of space? And it was my understanding that all of you that have been so active, we would be getting your input. Is that incorrect, Brent?
No, ma'am.
Okay, So I'm not sure where this got started that we were going to be closing it. We're renewing it for a year so that we're able to sit down with you guys and find out what you want. And so I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, because a lot of us have fought hard, and you know this because I've worked with you. I've responded to your emails that we're working hard to keep your center, to keep you together, to go reach out even further to community centers for people who can't get in. And there's some misinformation out there. I mean, I want to hear from all of you, fine, but the idea about that's why we just signed the lease for another year so we could get all your input. So I hate for you to be worried and scared and all of that because it's simply not true. Have I misspoke anything?
No, ma'am, that's exactly correct. And
Yeah.
if, if there is a better alternative location that's acceptable to the people who use the senior center on a regular basis, then we would move in that direction, but only if there is an alternate that everyone agrees on. Otherwise, our recommendation would be to renew the current lease for a longer period of time and negotiate with Eastgate to get a better deal all the way around. So we have no intentions of closing this senior center in any way.
So thank you. So I apologize if you worried about something, but I don't know where that information came from. So please don't worry. He's the chief of staff of the mayor. We're working hard to meet your needs. So I just wanted to say that, Mr. Chair, because I'm hearing some fear and some misinformation, and it's just simply not true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Certainly no reason to have any fear. All right, I think we're ready for our next speaker. And if you give us 3 minutes on the clock.
Hey, good evening, council. My name is Irene Eubanks. Allow me to speak for most of the seniors. We have raised children and some, like myself, grandchildren. So to have a place we can call our own, where we can use it before we lose it. Relating to our muscles and our mental health. Exercise can improve chronic diseases such as diabetes, and it can improve your emotional outlook. A healthy diet and exercise feeds your brain. This improves your decision-making abilities as you get older. I would like to provide some statistics on seniors in the United States as well as the state of Tennessee. In 2030, persons aged 65 and older will comprise 20% of the US population. That is 71,453,471 senior citizens in the United States, according to the Center for Elders and the Courts. According to Tennessee State Plan on Aging by TCAD, which is Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability, the number of Tennesseans aged 60 and older is projected to grow from an estimated 1,574,911 in 2017 to over 1,787,000 in 2021. Okay, in Hamilton County, residents 65 plus is 67,873, according to the 2020 State of Aging from Tennessee Commission on Aging and Disability. Diet and exercise are the two most important changes we can make as seniors. Our senior center offers various activities that add with these healthy habits and strengthen muscles. Do I have to stop? I have a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Can I finish?
I'm looking at the council.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, it also makes getting up from a chair or opening a door easier. So our purpose today is to ask for a large new standalone facility that will serve all the seniors in Chattanooga and its surrounding areas. This will provide the space needed for the various activities offered in an increasingly senior population. Please help us make this a reality that has been long overdue for the city of Chattanooga. Actually, we're behind. Knoxville and Murfreesboro already have senior facilities. Thank you for your time.
Hello, everybody.
You can pull that down.
Okay, is that right? Okay. I've been teaching exercise since 1970.
Give us your name.
I've been
and-
teaching. Okay.
Give
Do I
us
do
your
this
name.
I've been teaching exercise since 1975.
Could we have your name for the record, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Liz Henderson.
There we go.
And I am the oldest person at Eastgate. 84 years old. I had a birthday, July 3rd. I'm the oldest in age, and I'm the oldest one there. I've been there longer than any of these people, even Jerome and Angela. I've been there longer. And I guess I'm bragging a little bit, but I guess I'm proud of that. I really am proud to be there. But also, I've been teaching seniors since 1996 at Eastgate, and along with some other centers. And like they've already said, we do need. I think the year is what scared people. When they heard 1 year, they thought, oh, well, I think we may be gone in 1 year. I think that's really what started all this. And we got to thinking, maybe we ought to start thinking about coming down here and talking to you people about getting us a place of our own. Because I've been told the youth has 15 centers and the seniors have no center of their own. Not really. We don't really own Eastgate Center. And we really want a place of our own because honestly, we love one another. I mean, we're more like a family. I mean, when we're sick, or anybody's in the hospital, we go see them and we send flowers and we send cards. And we have one lady in the group that's with us today. She had a real serious operation. And this other lady that's here today, she asked nobody anything. She just got a real nice fruit basket, a nice basket, and took it to her home. And she didn't know she was coming. And the one that had the operation, she was so impressed. I mean, she really appreciated that basket. But that's just an example of the way we do. If one of our family members die, we go to the funeral, we go to the visitation, and we go to their dinners, whatever they are offering. We're there for them. And after, we don't desert them. And we check on them, make sure they're okay. And we're happy when they come back to the center because that's the place they can come and we can all forget our problems. We've all got them. I mean, they're just different problems. We've all got problems, and that's just a place we can come and be friends and fellowship and have dinners and love each other. And we really do. And we're glad to see one another. And we have really missed each other. We got put out. Of course, we had to. March the 13th, of 2020. And we went all that time, without seeing each other. And we really missed each other. And we called one another And some of the people, and not me really, I didn't go, I should have, but they went early to line dance, out on the Riverfront Parkway. But I thought, well, I'm going to take, okay, that's it. That's it. Thank you so much for listening to me. And thank you so much for everything that you might do for us.
That's great. Thank you. My name is Joshua Capellish. I was here last week. I want to thank you all for your time, especially your time, everybody that's here. We spent a lot of time here. All week I was thinking about how I could help the people who are homeless. But first, they're not homeless. Their homes are tents, tarps, and bushes just a few blocks away, right over here. I know you care deeply for the city, as do I, but this is our city. Okay? Muhammad Ali once said, "The rent we pay here on earth is service to others." The rent has gone up in Chattanooga, and so has homelessness. The self-evident truth is that you can turn left as you leave here and see exactly what I've been seeing down there. And the greatest tragedy is that we grow in years, but the empathy for others is sometimes lost. We wouldn't leave a baby crying on the street, but 20 years later, we are on our own. We are all children to God. And some have 60 years, some 100, and some less. In Matthew, in the Bible here that I've been reading, in Matthew 25:35, "For I was hungry, and you gave me food, and I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." And skipping a little bit. "And as much as you did it to the least of me, you did it to me." So in essence, if you feed and clothe the people that have the least and provide homes and shelter for those who need it most, you essentially do that for the Son of God. Human, I brought this dictionary with me, means to share the same form and attributes. We can all agree that we're humans here, and I accounted for about 73 of us. But to be humane is marked by compassion and sympathy for others, okay? And I had to look up what it means to be political. I'm not a politician. It's the art or science of government. Sometimes those conflict. But what we must do is put people before politics every time, because we're all people. We all put our pants on the same and come to work and do what we've got to do. I left work to come here and I got to go back. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All people are created equal, endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Gandhi said this: "A nation's greatness is measured by how it treats its weakest members." Now, as far as I can tell, as far as I counted, we wasted, well, let's say used 110 man hours. We could have been out doing something better than putting on a trial for somebody we know, or not someone, how would you say, no good has ever come from drinking that I can tell. And things that are going on out there, we could have simply made a few gavel hammers and made that decision and been on with our time, because we have more respect for that, especially respect for our elders. Now, thank you for the city people that have reached out to me during this week. We are making progress, but I need to make you aware of this.
Make you aware your time is up.
Yes,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Joshua Wright. I'm here. I was a part of the hearing earlier. Apparently, they didn't even realize I was here or something. I'm not sure. But I see a lot of heart walking up to the podium today, and I come up here disheartened. I'm one of the more, I've always had a belief in the system and how the system works. I've been at Sky Zoo for almost 10 years myself as an employee, because I have belief in the system. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I'm there because of people, and I love and enjoy putting out a safe environment, ensuring a safe environment. And it's because of that heart that sometimes I witness and I see things I don't want to see, and I've seen things that I have never wanted to see. I was there that night when the recent shooting had occurred and everything. I just want to bring up the fact that it's hard to have belief in the system when the system does things like go by CAD reports and numbers and categories. And I can personally vouch out of research that the special exemption permit is vague. from what I've learned and everything I've been researching since we got that notice, everything I pulled up, it involves discussion of changing it. I feel like there should be things and ways, and I also just by default almost feel like the system in place can be trusted. I feel like it shouldn't have taken 25 minutes for an ambulance to respond that night when I had Eric in my hands. I feel like that's not something that's going to happen because I believe we'll get help. Part of my job is to call. You know, you look at a number, you see a number, you see the police were called. You got to look at it whether it was part of my control or because it was out of control. It's part of the control 90% of the time, every single time I've ever called. Like I said, I've been there 10 years full time. I just really don't like seeing people categorized, people being grouped together in numbers when each individual person matters, each individual situation matters. And I trust that the system will not do things like that. But because I heard it called violence already, like they were trial and all these things were found guilty and confirmed. I don't know. I've only seen one gun at Skyzoo Chattanooga, and it was when that man shot. I've seen retaliatory calls because we never let people in. They just call and said they see a gun in the parking lot 3 times this year. I was the one that gave the footage to the police and helped catch that man. Never seen him before in my life. I love people. I love insurance safety, and I'm very good at it. And I still trust this system. I really want to stress that people can't be grouped together in numbers. You can't say a place is violent because a CAD report says so. Allergies are on this list. I have all the data, the definitions. It doesn't mean a place is bad because the numbers say so. I appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I've met you before, Ms. Coonrod. But ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate it. And I love seeing the heart approach the podium.
Sir, time's up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, councilmen and councilwomen. My name is Orlando Jackson, and I am located in District 6. And I wanted to formally introduce myself to Councilman Burrs, and I would be setting an appointment up with you following this.
Sir, I'd have to ask you not to address a council person by name or personally, please.
Excuse me. Say it
You what?
again. Council person. I'm sorry. Council person, I'll be setting up a meeting with you later on in the week. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council this afternoon by a show of hands? Council, I am not seeing any hands at this time. We're adjourned. My gosh, it's hot up in here.